Debates about controllers have been a major topic of conversation on more occasions than I can count for me, and I've never actually talked about which controllers I like or dislike on the channel before, so I thought, what better time than now to discuss that by making one of these tier lists that everybody's so crazy about. The list I'm about to make goes as far back as the Atari 2600 all the way up to current gen, so let me tell you guys what I think about a bunch of controllers spanning over the course of several decades.
Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying that there is quite a few controllers in this list that I don't remember what they are. I've known previously, but I've never played them, so they've since left my memory. So any of the times that I run into a controller that I'm not familiar with, I'm just gonna ignore it. So there you go. All right, so we're gonna go in order here because I don't know how else to list these. So I'm just gonna go in the order that they are lying in on the tier list. So we start off with the Xbox 360 controller. I think this is a great controller. It really kind of pioneered where modern game controllers are now. I mean, there's another controller that came before it, but I think this kind of set the groundwork for a lot of modern day controllers. This is a great controller. The only problem I have with it, and I'm sure a lot of other people have the exact same issue, that D-pad is garbage. This D-pad is not, it's not a D-pad. It's the worst thing ever. It's not. This would be A, but because of that D-pad, that's pretty much unusable, you're going into B. Okay, so this is the Sega Saturn 3D controller. I've only ever used one time, but this was released, I believe, for Nights into Dreams, and it's got this little micro-switchy thumbstick, joystick thing. I don't like micro-switch thumbsticks. They don't feel good. The controller's kind of comfortable itself. It's not weird to hold, but I can't handle that. That is your main directional input there, and that is not, we're going into C. All right, so the Atari 2600 joystick. This it pioneered gaming controllers as a whole, but if any of you have used this, it is mushy, is not fun to hold, it's uncomfortable, it doesn't feel good, it's good. I'm sorry. All right, I don't remember what this is. I'm pretty sure it's another Atari joystick. I'm really just not a fan of big-ass joysticks in general. So even though I don't remember exactly what this is, we're going into D. All right, so let me tell you about how I don't remember what the fuck this is. I have it. That's the funny thing. I have this controller. I don't have the console it goes to, but I remember it not feeling that great. It's kind of weird because all the buttons are like recessed into these little craters, so they don't feel very convex. They almost feel flush, so they're weird to press. And the D-pad is not great. It kind of feels like a Sega Genesis controller, but not as good. So this isn't the worst thing ever. So can't go here, but we're going into C for this. Don't remember. I have this and don't remember what it is. I'm sorry. We're passing this up. We're just going to stick these in the back. Any of the ones that I don't know, we're sticking back here. Okay, so Sega Dreamcast. This is a very good controller, and like I said before about the Xbox 360 controller, this set the groundwork for modern controllers as a whole. You can tell that this heavily borrowed a lot of design elements from this. This is a good controller. The thumbstick, though, it's plasticky. It doesn't have a rubber nub, and so it's kind of uncomfortable, and it feels a little stiff. I think this is a good controller. I can't say it's on the same... You know what? I think I need to fix this list here. I think this has got to go here, and this has got to go here. I think that's what we're doing. Okay, so the original Xbox Duke controller. Not great. Not great. The buttons don't feel good because they're weird and oblong, and that controller is fucking enormous. And I have big hands, so I don't know how a small-handed person could deal with this, and it's obvious that not many people love this controller because they released another smaller one later on. So even though this is kind of iconic for the original Xbox, this is not good. I can't say it's the worst, but it was definitely a hard C. I believe this is for the Saturn, and it's your typical kind of fight sticky retro controller. It's not bad. It's not bad. We can throw it into at least C. There's nothing really to write home about it, but it's not a bad controller. All right, GameCube controller. Fuck it. Okay, the Genesis 6 button. Here's the thing. I want to talk about both of these controllers at once. The 6-button controller is objectively better. It just is. It has more buttons. I don't know why they only put 3 buttons on the original Genesis controller, but the 6-button gives you more options. It's got a mode button. It's just a better controller overall in terms of what you can do with it. But I will say that this D-pad is inferior to this D-pad. I even like these buttons better. They feel better to press. So I gotta say, for usability, like what you can do, this is a better controller, but I like how this one feels better. I prefer this one. I wish there was a version of this one with 6 buttons. So they gotta go, they're both in B, I would say. They're both good controllers, but they both have flaws, and they both have pros and cons, so there you go. Why don't I remember? Is this Intellivision? ColecoVision? Something Vision? Some old shit that I remember playing when I was a little kid, because I used to play my uncle's old consoles, but I can't. It's a fucking Atari Jaguar. Okay, the Joy-Con. Here's the thing about the Joy-Con. They are revolutionary. They can do so many different things. They are easy to sync. They have so many different options of what you can do with them, and you can play with 2 people, or you can use them both for 1 person. It's great. It's innovative, but I hate that it doesn't have a D-pad, and I understand why they didn't put a D-pad on it, but it drives me nuts. So, I think for functionality, they're not amazing, but I think in innovation, I don't want to put them in A, but we're going B. B, that's safe, that's good. They're okay. All right, the Sega Master System controller really fucking wanted to be the NES controller, and it couldn't because Nintendo held the patent on D-pads, and that, I don't know if any of you guys have used the Sega Master System D-pad, but it is just a hunk of garbage, and those buttons are so mushy and tall. They're really tall. The travel is like insane. It takes like an hour and a half to press a button. I can't explain this to you. The buttons are just really tall. It's basically a very, very uncomfortable NES controller. It feels like a knockoff NES controller, and this is not. I hate this controller. Goodbye. All right. I don't hate the N64 controller. I actually really like it. I know that thumbstick is an issue because it dies, but I don't think this is a bad controller. I think that it was a really good first step in making a controller for 3D games. I think it's great because those handles provide different ways that you can play different games depending on whether that game is 2D or 3D. I don't hate this controller. I don't understand when people didn't understand how to hold it in the first place. I never had a problem with it. I took to this controller immediately. I love this controller. It's very comfortable for me. It's intuitive, for me at least. I put this in, I don't care. I'm putting it in A. I like this controller. Okay, this Neo Geo thing, it's got another one of those clicky joystick fucking thing. Goodbye. Nope. All right, the NES controller. That D-pad is fucking amazing. It's one of the first D-pads ever made, and it's still one of the best, if not the best. I like it the best. The only one that actually comes close, it's funny, is the D-pad on the N64 controller, but no one would know that because no one ever used it. Actually, pick up any used N64 controller and this thing will feel fucking fresh, like it just came out the factory. But I digress. This is a good controller. I love this D-pad. This is the greatest controller for retro games. I wish I had more buttons so I could use it on other games, because I'm not a huge fan of the SNES controller, but this is going S tier. There you go. Xbox One. I love this controller.
In fact, I love it so much that when a company called Controller Chaos contacted me inquiring about making me a custom controller, I told them to make me an Xbox One controller, and it came out fucking sick. And if you guys want something like this, a custom controller, I'm gonna leave their link in the description, because this is great.
I love it. They improved on the D-pad greatly by just making it micro switches, which, you know what? I don't prefer a micro switch D-pad, but compared to the 360, it's a godsend. I really love this controller. I didn't like it that much when it first came out, but it really grew on me, and I love it. I love how it feels. This is great. This is one of my favorite controllers. S. This fucking hunk of shit. Okay, here's the Ouya controller. I've used this one time, and one time only, and this is probably the worst controller I've ever used in my life. It is so uncomfortable, so cheap feeling. It feels worse than a third party. It feels worse than like a Mad Catz controller. It's so bad. And it's very funny because they touted the quality of this controller when they were first making the Ouya, and I don't know who fucked up, but this is the worst. This is the worst controller I've ever used in my life, and I wish there was another tier below D. This is going into the fucking Shadow Realm. So I'm just gonna put it at the end of D. It should go further. It should be in fucking Z. I don't remember what this is. I think it's like the Panasonic fucking whatever. Just whatever. Who cares? Okay, so here's the part where I rate This is all the same controller, except for you. You're a little different, but not much. I don't like any of these. I'm sorry. I do not like I don't like any of the PlayStation/DualShock controllers. I do prefer them for when I have to play a fighting game on a console. I do prefer this guy here, but I never liked this controller, especially for 3D games. I don't like having to claw hand the joystick or the thumbstick. That's never felt good to me. These controllers have never been comfortable. I don't think they're the worst thing ever. I don't think they're terrible. I do think they're good controllers. I don't like them. I personally don't like them. I'm not gonna trash them and say they're D. Here's what we're gonna do here. This gets a pass because this is the best of these. They're all an improvement on each other, but they're all improved on a design that I don't really like. So, I'm gonna put this in B. I think this is okay. I think this is a good evolution of this controller. It is good for 2D games and stuff like that. But all of these, here you go. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry, everybody. You don't even have thumbsticks, so what are you doing? All right, this is a Sega Saturn controller. There are two of these. I hate this one. This is clunky and dumpy and uncomfortable, and I love this one. This feels great. This feels like what the Genesis 6-button controller should have felt like. So we're gonna put this. This is not. It's pretty bad, but I don't think it's bad enough to be D. We're gonna put you in C. And this is pretty good. This is a pretty good controller. It's really good for fighting games. It's good. Okay, I know I'm gonna step on a few toes here, but the SNES controller. Okay, I don't love it. It's good, but the buttons to me always felt pretty mushy. It doesn't feel as satisfying to use as the NES controller. I think that this is objectively better because it has more buttons. There's more you can do with it, but I don't think it feels as good as the NES controller. I think it's a great controller. Obviously, it stood the test of time because people are still copying this design even today with, I mean, look at this button layout. The Xbox, they all were copying this. This is a good controller, but I personally don't love it. I like it. I actually like the new 8-Bit Do remakes of this because they feel a little more satisfying to use, but this is going in A. I don't love it, but it's earned its place. It's an A. I don't know anybody who's used this fucking thing, so this is going back here. This controller's fucking great. This is probably at this point, my favorite controller of all time. This is fucking incredible, great controller. The D-pad could be a little better, I will admit. But overall, this is a great controller. I just wish it had analog triggers, because you could do more with that, but this is great. I can't put this in anything other than S. TurboGrafx 16 controller, not bad, pretty good controller. Feels like an NES controller, except for, of course, they had to change the D-pad because it couldn't be the same. There's not much I can say about this. It's got little switches for turbo, which is kind of cool for a first-party controller. It's going in, I don't know. I'm in between C and B. All right, a high C. There you go. I don't know what this is. Okay, Virtual Boy. I didn't have a Virtual Boy growing up. I just got one a couple years ago at a convention, and I've barely used it. So I don't know too much about the Virtual Boy. This thing has two different fucking D-pads on each side of the controller, and I don't understand what that's for. I'm sure it serves some purpose, but I don't get it. I'm gonna be honest here. I don't think this is an uncomfortable controller. I think it's pretty comfortable. I think it works pretty well, as far as I know, because I've limited experience with it. But I don't think it's bad. I can't put it in B because it's the Virtual Boy controller, but high C. You're going all right under TurboGrafx is That's good. Okay, this is the Wii Classic controller. I think it's very good. It's got a great D-pad. This is gonna go in a low B because its younger sibling is so much fucking better. And this is probably my favorite controller of all time for retro kind of games. This D-pad is great. If you guys have not used this controller, please use it. Even now, you can use like an adapter. I think a few companies make adapters so that you can use this with more modern stuff, but this is a really good controller. I loved using it with Mario Maker. It's great. This is a great retro controller. That D-pad is fucking incredible. This is going right up. This is going right here, actually. I love this controller. All right, I'm gonna come out and say it. Wii U gamepad, not a bad controller. It's very comfortable. It's got, once again, a great D-pad. It's kind of clunky, because it's kind of heavy, and it dies really quickly. The battery sucks ass, but I think this is really comfortable. I think this is really great for home console games, and I love certain utilizations of it, like in Zelda when the menu pops up here and the map can go up here. That is great, and it really saves space on the screen. I like this controller. Obviously, it was too expensive and not practical, but I do think that it was actually a really good controller when it was used properly. So I'm gonna put this as a low A, and I actually like it better than the SNES controller, so we're gonna stick it right there. All right, Wii Remote. This thing, I don't know how I feel about it, because in some regards I really liked it, and in some I didn't. It was very clever how you could put it on its side to use it for retro games. I think it's a good controller. We're gonna stick this. I like it better than the Joy-Cons, I gotta say. Maybe like right, like, move. What are you doing? There we go. Right there. That's where you're going. I like you. The D-pad is very small, but it's actually very good and responsive. I like it. I like the Wii Remote. I think there's ways that it could have been improved, but overall, I think it's a good controller. You're a high B. All right, the Wii U Pro controller. This was like one of my favorite controllers of all times before this little guy showed up. So, you know what? We're gonna stick this right here. This basically is like the precursor to this. This was really good. In certain regards, I did like how the thumbsticks were not off-axis, because that was actually kind of interesting. No other controllers this style did this before. It was kind of weird how the buttons were down here, but I think this controller felt very good. It was great. It was a good controller right there. And last is the Xbox, I think it's the S controller. This is the one that replaced the Duke because the Duke was too fucking big. I think this was what they put out in Japan originally, and then they gave us this big-ass one because they're like, Americans have bigger hands, but then nobody liked this fucking thing anyway. So we ended up getting the Japanese version, and everybody loved this one. This is a good controller. This is basically the precursor to the Xbox 360 controller. This is very good. This is a good controller. I would stick this in a very low A. So that's my controller tier list. I'm sure all of you are super happy about my choices, but if you want to try out this tier list for yourself, I will leave the link in the description, and you can tell me what your personal tier list is, because I know that it's going to be different than mine, and you're going to be angry about my choices. But thanks for watching. GameCube best boy.
Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, maybe go ahead and click that like button and subscribe to see more. If you want to see more right now, there's a couple videos right there you can check out. And if you want to help me eat food and not die, my Patreon link is right there too.